Problem 5-61. Consider the function f of x equals 2 divided by the quantity of 7 minus x. What is f of 7? So in other words, when we plug in 7 into the function here, what are we going to end up with? So first of all, let's go ahead here and think about it from an algebraic standpoint. Let's take letter A here. We're going to say the function f of 7 is going to equal 2 divided by 7 minus 7, which should give us 2 over 0. And you know that you can't have that, which means this is going to be undefined. Can't have a fraction over 0. So we said that that is undefined. Now let's look at why that is. Let's take it and let's type it in the calculator here. Let's do 2 divided by a quantity of 7 minus x. And let's graph it. What you're going to see here is we end up with a hyperbola. And what we'll notice here is if we look at our table, we can plug in all these different values for x and we get all these various outputs. But then when we get all the way down here, let me get to 7, notice that we have an error there. And that's the effect of subtracting 7 from 7 in the denominator and ending up with 0. So that is the only number that we cannot have as our x value or as our input. And that kind of leads us right into part B, which says, what is the domain of f of x? Well, as you look at the graph here, we can plug in any value here for x all the way up to where we get right up to 7, but we can't plug in 7 as we already saw there. And then we can plug in anything greater than 7 here. So we're going to go on and on forever to the right, we're going to go on forever to the left, but we just can't plug in 7. So our domain is going to be, you'd say, all real numbers except 7. I think that some books write, x cannot equal 7, meaning that's the only value that it cannot be. So you could do either one of those, would be fine. And letter C. If g of x equals 2x plus 5, what is g of 3? So we're going to take 3, we're going to plug it in. Say function g of 3 equals 2x plus 5. So we're going to say 2 times 3 then, plus 5. So we're going to end up with function g of 3 equals 2 times 3 is 6, plus 5 is 11. So we know that when we plug in 3 into this function, we get 11 as our output. We can check that here. Let's go on to our calculator. Let's just type in the function 2x plus 5. Graph that. Now we are saying that our output's going to be 11, and my y-axis only goes up to 10, so I'm going to go ahead and adjust that real quick. I'm going to adjust the y max to, let's just make it 15. Let's go back to our graph. And if I just want to see what happens when I put in 3, I'm going to press trace, I'm going to press 3 as my input, I'm going to press enter, and I get 11 as the output. So you'll see exactly where that point is. Now the final part of this question Part D says, now use the output of g of 3 as the input for f to calculate f of g of 3. So we're trying to find f of g of 3. What does that equal? Well, if we know here that g of 3 equals 11, we can take this 11 and substitute it in for the output or the value of g of 3. So in other words, we're looking at f, our function f of, well, we're plugging in 11 as our input. So we're saying f of 11 equals, and we'll take it here, we're going to plug in 11 into the fraction here. So we're going to say 2 over 7 minus 11. And we end up with 2 over negative 4, which is going to be the same thing as negative 1/2. So we end up here with f of g of 3 should equal negative 1/2. So I'm just going to box in my answers here so that you can see. Remember, this is D, this is C, this would be B up here. Remember, it could also be this one. And then A we said was undefined. This is problem 5-61. If you have questions, make sure you ask your teacher. Thanks for listening. I hope this helped.